Hi, boys and girls, and welcome to a very special bonus Carla and Crappy Show, the bonus Final Four edition of the Crappy Show. This is kind of an impromptu thing. Obviously, I'm taping this. We all taped our little segments here on Sunday, just a little bit after the committee announced its Final Four picks. The teams are going to participate in the college football playoff this year. I asked both Carla and AJ just to tape a quick segment with their thoughts about what the committee did well, what maybe it did not do well. We're going to look at the how the 4-5 thing went, because that's one of the things everyone's talking about. Apparently, it was a kind of a tight decision. So I had everybody, rather than get everyone together, because we have lives and stuff. I asked those guys to at least tape just a couple minute thing with their thoughts about what they saw. So as you guys know, unless you've been living under a rock, the Final Four rankings were number 1, Clemson, number 2, Oklahoma, number 3, Georgia, number 4, Alabama. First team out was Ohio State. So I have not watched these. I have segments from both of them. I don't know what they're going to say, but we're gonna let this go and see what happens. AJ is first up. Go.
Hey everybody, it's AJ coming to you on Playoff Selection Sunday. We have a lot of things to talk about and very, very little time to do it in. What we have is the top 4. The top 4 being the finals for the playoffs. Number 1 was Clemson. Number 2 was Oklahoma. Number 3 was Georgia. Number 4 was Alabama. The big controversy is Bama versus Ohio State. Who gets in? Alabama gets in over a Big Ten champion, Ohio State. Go back and look at your timeline, Ohio State fans. Go back to last year and then find everything that you tweeted and sassed at Penn State fans and just replace Penn State with Ohio State, and you have the exact same argument. Bama has 1 loss. Y'all got 2. Don't lose 2 games. It also does not help that you lost your second game by 31 to Iowa. Doesn't help at all. I think the committee would have overlooked maybe a 3-point loss, or like 3 or less, like on a last-second field goal or something like that. But losing by 31 and forgetting how to play the game of football is the reason you're not in the playoff. You get to go to a New Year's 6 game. I've seen some projections thrown around of Ohio State versus USC in the Fiesta Bowl. That'll be super fun. But overall, I think the committee got it right. The only thing that they could have had an out on is USC. USC is 11-2. Their 2 losses were what I would have expected Ohio State to maybe get in on. They got drubbed by Notre Dame by a 25-point loss or 35-point loss to Notre Dame, and they lost by 3 at Wazoo. I think SC probably gets in. They've got a pretty good record at home. They did not really have to put off any real fights. Maybe Arizona's their closest game. So I think USC probably could have gotten in over Bama. They're also Pac-12 champions. But they chose Alabama. They got 1 loss. The other 2 teams had 2 losses. It's that simple. So the college football playoff should look pretty great. Clemson, I think, is going to beat the crap out of Bama. And that Georgia-Oklahoma game, I still got a lot to think about. We'll check you out Rabolapalooza. Bye.
Thank you, AJ. I assume you said something witty and smart, as always. Next up is Carla. Carla, what do you think?
So do I think the committee got it right? Sorry, Crappy. Yes, I do. I think Clemson, Georgia, and Oklahoma were no-brainers after the way they each won their conference title games this year. And unfortunately for Ohio State, it's the same logic that went against my Nittany Lions last year. In 2016, I was always saying the committee's not going to overlook 49-10, 49-10 being the Michigan score. And I think the same thing happened to the Buckeyes this year because of the Iowa loss. If they'd had 2 losses to 2 ranked opponents, then maybe we'd have a conversation here. But the fact that Iowa is not ranked And that was it was a 55-24 beatdown by Iowa. I think that was just too much for the Buckeyes to overcome. Alabama has one loss, and it was a loss to a top 10 team. It's a number 2 team in the country. So yeah, I think the committee got it right. Gosh, I would love though, and I'm sure AJ is probably saying something similar to this, but gosh, I wish UCF could get a shot at this. I would love to see what these Power 5 conferences would do with a team like UCF. I could be completely wrong here, and we'll find out in the Peach Bowl. But I would love to see an offense like that, and the way they handled themselves after that game in the AAC title game. That would be a lot of fun to watch. I personally don't favor expanding the playoff at all. I think 4 teams, no matter how many teams are in the playoff, somebody's always going to get left out, and we're always going to have this conversation. So I'm not in favor of expanding the playoff. I like the 4-team playoff. But gosh, I wish that we would take a team like UCF that is unbeaten and so dominant in its conference seriously in this case. Who would I take out? Honestly, I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that, but yeah, Knights had a great season, and it'll be fun to watch them in the Peach Bowl. So looking forward to the playoff. I think it'll be interesting having the rematch, the title game in the first round with Clemson and Alabama. And the second game should be pretty interesting as well. I'm not really sure how to think about it just quite yet. So it should be a great bowl season and great playoff season.
Carla, thank you. Carla is wearing the makeup because she had concerts during the day today in the evening. So I'm sure she did very, very well. But we appreciate her getting dressed up for the Carla and Crappy show too. That was nice. As far as I'm concerned, I'm largely good with what the committee came up with. I mean, Clemson, they meet the eye test in every respect. They look like the best team in the country, and they absolutely destroyed Miami in the ACC title game. They should be number 1, so they're in the right spot. Oklahoma, Oklahoma's home loss to Iowa State. I mean, everyone sort of assumed, oh God, they're done when that one happened. But as it turns out, the Cyclones are actually a respectable team. That's maybe not a bad loss. So Oklahoma, yeah, I'm good with them there. I suspect that if Auburn had won the SEC title game, that they would have been number 2 instead of the Sooners. But as it was, Georgia handled Auburn in the SEC title game, avenged the loss that they suffered a few weeks back, and here they are. So they're in the Final Four, and I think that's correct. And then there's Alabama. And here's the thing: I'm bothered by the notion that the SEC, which is not the league that it was just a few years ago, has 2 teams. But I can't argue with this pick. Even as an Ohio State fan. There are issues. They certainly benefited from starting the season at number 1, but my team benefits from those high preseason rankings all the time. So I can't really gripe about that. Their strength of schedule certainly wasn't helped by scheduling Mercer in November. I've mentioned this before, and in this debate yesterday, especially I noticed Alabama fans saying, "Well, Mercer's better than Illinois," and I'm like, "Well, Illinois is not a 1AA team." And stop doing that, because it does not help you guys. Although it didn't hurt as much as perhaps I would have liked it to. But the stuff with Alabama, I think this actually has to do more with Ohio State and what happened with its season. Does the committee look at the beating they took at the hands of Oklahoma early in the season at home? So if you're wondering, can Ohio State hang with the other playoff teams? That game maybe suggests no. And then, the loss to Iowa is just flat out inexcusable. That's not the way a team that's going to be in the Final Four should perform. A 2-loss conference champion should get in over a 1-loss team that didn't play for its title. That you can make that argument, but I think what the committee is doing here is actually is not just sort of plugging teams into slots. It is actually looking at what's going on here, and that's the better path here. They're not just mailing it in based on records and titles. Maybe I would feel differently about this. Maybe if Ohio State's win over Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game had been a blowout, If that had been an easier game, then maybe I'm a little more upset today. But as this was when I turned off the TVs after watching these games at work last night on Saturday night, I didn't feel like Ohio State was one of the best 4 teams in the country. So it's tough now for me to complain about being the first team out. I think the committee got it right. So obviously we have lots more stuff to discuss. Bowlapalooza coming up in a couple weeks. We mentioned that we will be back with a cast of thousands actual smart sports people will be joining us. I'm generally the one that's not included in that group, so you can look forward to that, and then a couple more shows at least as we get through the end of the season. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Carla, for doing this on short notice, and always, as always, thank you guys for watching. Check back here for Bowlapalooza in a couple weeks. We'll talk to you again soon.